The bus terminal buzzed with noise. Engines rumbling, people murmuring, footsteps echoing across the concrete floor. Even the air felt thick, heavy with heat and impatience. The long line stretched past the faded yellow tiles, every person shifting their weight from one foot to the other as they waited for the only bus running that afternoon. Emma crossed her arms tightly, pink hair sticking to her forehead from the humidity, tattoos partially visible under her rolled-up sleeves. She tapped her foot, annoyed, her frustration simmering just below the surface. Her father, Michael, stood beside her, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "It's hot today," he said with an awkward attempt at conversation. Emma didn't respond. She hated crowded places. She hated waiting. But most of all, she hated feeling trapped. Like the world was too slow, too old, too resistant to change. When the bus finally turned the corner, its engine grumbling like an old man waking up, the whole line shifted instinctively closer. The driver eased to a stop, brakes sighing loudly. Michael placed a gentle hand on Emma's arm. "Let the older folks go in first, Emma," he said, nodding toward a few elderly people ahead of them. He said it softly, casually, but that didn't matter. Emma's eyes flashed. "What?" Michael blinked, surprised by the sharpness in her tone. "Just respect. They've been standing longer. We can—" "Dad," she snapped, voice rising enough to turn a few heads. "I don't need to follow outdated rules about who gets to go first." Michael sighed. "Emma, it's not." "It is," she cut in, stepping back to untangle his hand from her arm. "This ladies first, older first, men do this, women do that. All of that is patriarchal nonsense." Michael's expression softened, but his shoulders tensed. "I wasn't trying to—" Emma raised her voice even more, ignoring the way several people in line were now openly watching the argument. "You always do this, always trying to enforce some old-fashioned code on me. I'm not a child, and I'm not some delicate flower that needs special treatment." The words came out sharper than she intended, slicing through the humid air. Michael looked down, jaw tightening in quiet hurt. "Emma, I was just being polite." "Polite?" she scoffed. "Respect shouldn't depend on age or gender. We're equals. Everyone here is equal." The bus doors hissed open. The driver gestured for the line to form, but no one moved. They were too busy listening. Michael kept his gaze low. "I didn't mean to upset you." Emma exhaled dramatically. "That's the problem. You don't get how outdated this stuff is. It's microaggressions like this that keep old systems alive." Michael's shoulders slumped. He wasn't angry. He wasn't defensive. He looked tired. Tired in a way that aged him instantly. But Emma didn't see that. Not yet. The tension spread through the line, tightening it like a drawn bowstring. A young man behind them shifted uncomfortably. A woman holding a toddler pressed her lips together. The only person who didn't look away was the elderly lady 3 spots ahead, leaning on her silver cane, her posture fragile but her gaze steady. Her soft eyes followed the argument without a hint of irritation, only understanding, and something else Emma couldn't yet name. Emma rolled her eyes, brushing sweat from her brow. "Honestly, Dad, maybe think before you—" But before she could finish, the elderly lady stepped out of the line with careful, deliberate movements. She placed a gentle hand on Emma's arm. Her voice came out soft, but clear enough to silence the terminal. "Dear," she said, "let me tell you something. Before you say something, you'll wish you hadn't." Emma stiffened at the touch. The elderly lady's hand was light, feather-light, but the gesture carried a strange weight that sliced clean through her anger. The entire bus line fell into an uneasy hush, as though every sound had been pressed beneath an invisible thumb. The woman stood small and slightly hunched, her silver hair pulled into a loose bun, wisps escaping around her temples. Her cane glinted faintly under the terminal lights, but her eyes were impossibly sharp, not harsh, not judgmental, just knowing. Emma pulled her arm away on instinct. "Excuse me." The elderly lady lifted her hand gently. "I heard what you said," she interrupted calmly. "And before you continue, I'd like to share something, if you'll allow me." Emma opened her mouth to protest, to reclaim the momentum of her righteous frustration. But something in the woman's tone made her pause. It wasn't condescending. It wasn't mocking. It wasn't dismissive. It was steady and undeniably sincere. Michael looked from Emma to the woman, eyes wide, not sure whether to intervene. The woman smiled softly, the kind of smile someone earns through decades of heartbreak and healing. "You remind me," she said, "of myself. Many, many years ago. Full of convictions, full of fire, full of fight." Emma swallowed, caught off guard. "But I learned something," the woman continued, leaning lightly on her cane as she shifted her weight. "Something your father understands very well." A murmur rippled through the line. No one dared to interrupt. Emma crossed her arms defensively, though her voice had lost some of its bite. "And what's that?" The woman looked at her with eyes filled with both warmth and sadness. "That kindness is not patriarchy. Respect is not oppression. And letting someone go first is not submission." Emma felt her throat tighten. She forced her expression into one of skepticism. "That's not what I know," the woman said softly, raising a hand again. "But listen to me for just a moment." Emma fell silent almost against her will. "When I was younger," the woman began, "my husband used to do things like that. Hold the door, carry heavy bags, insist that I go ahead of him. I teased him sometimes, pretended to be annoyed." Her smile wavered. "But I loved it, not because I needed help, but because he wanted to give it." Emma blinked. The woman's voice lowered, trembling just slightly. "He passed away 20 years ago. Cancer. Took him fast. Too fast." She closed her eyes for a second, collecting herself. "And do you know what I would give? What I would give to hear him say, 'Go ahead, sweetheart, just one more time'?" A knot formed in Emma's chest. "I would trade every argument," the woman whispered. "Every feminist essay I wrote, every protest I marched in, just to hear that one small gesture of love again." Emma's breath caught. The woman opened her eyes, soft but piercing. "The gesture, dear, only means what you decide it means. Sometimes it's not a chain." She touched her heart. "Sometimes it's a memory." The terminal went silent, a silence thick with realization, with truth, with something Emma had been fighting too hard to feel. Michael swallowed, his gaze dropping as emotion welled behind his lashes. The woman turned slightly toward him. "Your daughter is strong," she said gently, "and you should be proud, but strength without listening." Her eyes returned to Emma, warm but firm. "That becomes something else." Emma's face flushed, not from anger, not anymore, but from the sting of recognition. The sting of seeing herself from the outside, through eyes that had lived long enough to understand nuance she hadn't yet learned to hold. The bus doors opened again with a hiss, but no one moved. Not yet. The elderly woman took Emma's hand softly, her touch surprisingly steady. "You don't have to agree with your father, but don't wound him for loving you in the only way he knows how." Emma felt her pulse thrum painfully beneath the woman's fingertips. "Be careful with your fire," the woman whispered. "It can warm, or it can burn." The words hit Emma harder than anything she had expected. Harder than her father's silence. Harder than her own anger. She took a shaky breath, unable to speak, and for the first time that afternoon, the line didn't see a girl fighting the world. They saw a young woman suddenly realizing she didn't know everything she thought she did. The elderly lady gave her a final gentle pat on the hand. "And let an old lady go first this time," she said with a wink. "Not because you have to, but because you choose to." The crowd exhaled, a collective, emotional release. "And Emma?" Emma could only watch in stunned silence as the woman turned toward the bus doors, walking slowly, proudly, with her cane tapping softly against the ground. Leading the way, Emma stood frozen as the elderly lady stepped forward toward the open bus doors. The cane tapped softly against the pavement, a rhythmic, steady sound that felt louder than anything else in the terminal. People in the line parted naturally for her, some lowering their heads out of respect, others still processing the emotional weight of what they had just heard. Emma's fingers twitched at her sides. Her breath felt shallow, like she had been holding it ever since the woman touched her arm. Michael didn't speak. He didn't even look at her. He simply stared at the ground, shoulders lowered, the defeat in his posture unmistakable. And that hurt Emma in a way she wasn't prepared for. Not because she felt wrong. She still believed in her principles. She still understood the structures she fought against, the history, the weight of certain traditions. But now there was something else pressing against her ribs. Something she couldn't categorize, couldn't argue, couldn't push away. A feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. Humility. The line began to move again, slowly. A mother carried her toddler toward the steps. A teenager glanced nervously between Emma and her father. Everyone seemed softer now, quieter, as if they too had been reminded of something important. Emma swallowed hard, heat rising behind her eyes. She hated that feeling, hated losing control, hated the vulnerability clawing its way to the surface. But she couldn't ignore what she had seen in the woman's eyes. Love, loss, memory, and a truth born not of theory, but of lived life. Michael shifted his feet, taking a small step forward with the line. He still didn't look at her. Emma's stomach twisted. "Dad," she murmured. Michael paused but didn't turn his head. "We should get in line, Emma. The bus is filling up." His tone was gentle, too gentle, and that made it even worse. There was no anger, no defensiveness, just quiet resignation. Emma's chest tightened painfully. She followed him silently, the two of them stepping forward with the line. The terminal lights flickered overhead, casting uneven shadows across their faces. Emma felt small under the harsh brightness, as if everything she had said earlier was being played back on a screen for everyone to see. They reached the base of the bus steps. Emma looked up, breathing in the smell of exhaust and warm metal. The elderly lady had just found a seat near the front. She sat gracefully back straight, eyes gently following the line of passengers. Her gaze met Emma's for a brief moment. Not judgment, not pity, just understanding. And that look alone nearly broke Emma. She turned to Michael again, this time with intention. "Dad," she said softly, her voice cracking. "Wait." He froze on the first step, his hand gripping the metal railing. Slowly, he turned toward her. His eyes, warm, tired, and painfully human, met hers. Emma wasn't used to that look. She wasn't used to seeing him wounded. She wasn't used to realizing she was the one who caused it. Her voice trembled. I didn't mean to hurt you." Michael inhaled slowly. "I know, Emma." But his tone said, "But you did." Emma stepped closer, lowering her voice even further. I reacted. I didn't think. I should have." Michael shook his head gently. "You don't need to explain. You're passionate. You feel things strongly. That's part of who you are." Emma felt her chest ache. "I don't want my fire to burn you." Michael blinked, surprised by her choice of words. "Emma," she swallowed. "I'm trying." And for the first time, Michael's expression softened, really softened. He reached out, hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know you are," he whispered. Emma felt warmth spread down to her fingertips. She looked back toward the elderly woman. The woman gave her a small approving nod, almost imperceptible but full of meaning. Emma turned back to her father. "Let's go in together, okay?" Michael smiled then. A real smile, not hesitant, not forced. Warm, relieved. "Together," he said. Emma stepped onto the bus beside him, for once not needing to be first, not needing to prove anything, not needing to defend herself, just needing to understand, just needing to be understood, just needing him. She wasn't ready to call it an apology, not yet, but it was something better. The first step toward healing a place she didn't know had been cracked, and as they walked down the bus aisle side by side, Emma thought about the elderly woman's words, how love sometimes hides in the smallest gestures, and she wondered, quietly, how many things had she misread in her own life because she was too busy fighting to listen? The bus's interior hummed softly as passengers shuffled down the aisle, searching for seats. The air inside was warm and smelled faintly of fabric, air freshener, and the lingering scent of rain drifting through the open door. The elderly lady had settled near the front, the soft patterned fabric of her dress blending with the light blue seat cushions. She adjusted her cane, then folded her hands neatly in her lap, watching Emma with a calm, steady gaze. Emma felt that gaze like a warm pressure on her back, not intrusive, not heavy, but present, guiding, reminding. She and her father moved slowly down the narrow aisle. Michael paused beside an empty pair of seats halfway through the bus and motioned for her to take the one by the window. She hesitated for a split second, not out of resistance this time, but out of awareness. He wasn't telling her what to do. He wasn't assuming, he was offering. A small gesture, a simple courtesy. One she might have once interpreted as control, but now, she saw it differently. "Thanks," she said softly, sliding into the seat. Michael sat beside her, folding his hands in his lap, eyes on the floor as if still afraid to disturb the quiet between them. The bus doors hissed shut, and the engine growled. The bus jerked forward, the wheels rumbling over cracks in the pavement as it pulled away from the terminal. Emma leaned her shoulder lightly against the window, watching buildings slide past in a blur. The silence between her and her father was thick, but not hopeless, not angry, not empty. It was a silence full of things unspoken, but ready to be said. Emma stole a glance at him. His profile looked a little older than she remembered. Lines she had never noticed before carved gently around his eyes, and his shoulders carried a weight she hadn't realized she'd added to. "Dad," she began softly. Michael turned slightly, giving her his attention but not pressuring her to continue. Emma picked at her sleeve. "I wasn't fair to you. Back there." Michael blinked. "You didn't have to say that." "But I want to," she said quickly. "I reacted too fast. She stopped, searching for the right word. "I let my anger talk instead of me." Michael's expression softened in a way that made Emma's chest tighten. "You have strong beliefs, Emma. That's not a flaw." "I know," she whispered. "But sometimes I hold them like weapons." Michael swallowed gently. "You don't need to fight me." Emma looked down at her hands. "I know that now." They fell into another pause, but this one felt lighter, like a space being cleared rather than filled. After a moment, Emma spoke again, her voice barely above a murmur. "That woman, she wasn't trying to take your side. She just saw something I didn't." Michael smiled faintly. "She reminded you of what matters." "She reminded me of what I forget," Emma corrected. Her father tilted his head. "Which is?" She breathed out slowly. "Intent. Meaning. The story behind the gesture." Michael nodded, the lines around his eyes easing. "I wasn't trying to patronize you, I just wanted to be kind. That's all." Emma's voice cracked. "I know, I see it now." The bus turned a corner, jolting slightly. A few passengers shifted in their seats, conversations murmuring softly behind them. Emma looked forward and spotted the elderly lady watching the city through the window, her expression peaceful. Emma felt a sudden urge, a quiet, unfamiliar one, to understand more about her. Not just who she was, but where her wisdom came from, what she had lived, what she had lost. "Dad," she said, her voice gaining a little strength. Do you think, do we ever really know the meaning behind the things people do? Or do we just assume the worst to protect ourselves? Michael thought about it before answering. People see the world through their wounds, Emma, and their fears, but they also see it through their love. He paused. The question is which one we listen to. Emma nodded slowly, letting his words settle deep. Today, Michael continued, you listened, and that matters more to me than anything you said before. She blinked quickly, pushing down the emotion rising in her throat. The bus slowed at a red light, and in the brief stillness, Emma caught sight of her reflection in the window. Pink hair slightly messy, eyes glistening, expression softer than she was used to seeing on her own face. She hardly recognized herself, but in the best way. Someone touched her arm gently. Emma turned. It was the elderly lady. She had shuffled down the aisle, holding the seatbacks as she moved. May I sit for a moment, dear? The lady asked with a kind smile. Emma's breath hitched. Yes, please. The woman eased into the seat across from them, her eyes twinkling with warmth and something unspoken. Emma felt her heart beat faster, not out of fear, but out of anticipation, because she could sense the woman wasn't done teaching her yet. The elderly lady settled carefully into the seat across from them, her cane resting against her knee. Her movements were slow, deliberate, like each one carried the wisdom of decades. Emma sat up a little straighter, unsure why her heart thudded faster just from the woman's presence. The woman folded her hands, her fingers thin but steady. I hope you don't mind my joining you for a moment, she said with a gentle smile. Emma shook her head quickly. No, not at all. Michael offered a respectful nod. Of course, ma'am. She chuckled softly. Ma'am, it always makes me feel like I'm being scolded. Her eyes glimmered with mischief. You can call me Ruth. Emma mirrored the smile, though nervously. Ruth. The name felt soft in her mouth, like something warm and familiar even though they'd never met. Ruth leaned back slightly, the bus rocking gently beneath them. I didn't want to embarrass you earlier, dear. I only hoped you'd hear me. Emma swallowed. I really did. Michael stayed silent, giving the conversation room to breathe. Ruth looked at Emma with a kind of softness that made her feel both exposed and understood at the same time. You have passion. I saw it in your eyes from the moment you spoke. Fire is a gift, dear, but it can blind you when it rises too fast. Emma lowered her gaze. I think I'm starting to understand that. Ruth nodded. Anger is easy. Understanding. She tapped lightly over her heart. That takes practice. The bus lurched slightly as it moved over a pothole. Ruth steadied herself, then continued. You know, she said, the world is full of battles worth fighting, but not every raised voice is a revolution. Sometimes it's just a wound speaking. Emma felt the words cut straight through her defenses. Are you saying I was wounded? Ruth offered a pained smile. We all are, dear. Our beliefs don't just come from books or speeches. They come from something we needed when we were younger, something we felt the world didn't give us. Emma's breath caught. She'd never heard it phrased like that before, not in any lecture, not in any debate, not in any online discussion. Ruth continued softly. Your fire tells me you care. Deeply. Fiercely. That's a beautiful thing. But sometimes, she tilted her head gently, you mistake kindness for condescension because you're afraid of being diminished. Emma's throat tightened. She wasn't used to being seen so clearly, especially not by a stranger. Michael shifted uncomfortably, not because he disagreed, but because he understood exactly how piercing the truth could be. Ruth gave Emma a moment to breathe before she went on. Your father wasn't trying to silence you. He wasn't trying to control you. He was simply trying to show care in the way he learned to. Emma blinked rapidly, her chest tightening as she replayed the scene in her mind. The heat, the impatience, The bus approaching, her father's gentle hand on her arm. He had spoken softly. She had responded with fire. "Intent," Ruth whispered, as if reading her thoughts. "Look for intent." Emma looked up slowly, meeting Ruth's eyes. "And what if I misjudge it?" Ruth smiled. "Then you ask, you breathe, you wait, you listen." She clasped her hands together, her expression deepening with something more emotional than admonition. "When my husband used to let me go first, I didn't see a man trying to put me on a pedestal or box me in. I saw someone who loved me so much. He wanted every small moment to feel gentle." Her voice cracked. "And when I lost him, those small moments became treasures." Emma felt warmth rush up her neck, followed by a sting in her eyes. Michael looked down, touched in a way he couldn't swallow down or hide. Ruth noticed Emma's trembling breath and reached out, placing a soft, cool hand on hers. "Dear, not everything is a fight, and not everyone is your enemy." Emma stared at their hands, her youthful skin marked with tattoos and bright colors. Ruth's skin thin and pale, veins like faded rivers, two different worlds touching gently. Ruth squeezed her hand once. "And the people you love most? They shouldn't have to bleed to prove they're not." Emma looked up sharply, emotion hitting her full force. Ruth smiled softly, as if easing the blow. "Forgiving yourself is the first step, dear. The second is letting others show love in the ways they know how." The bus slowed, turning onto a quieter street. The sunlight shifted, casting soft golden stripes across their faces. Emma felt something settle inside her chest. Not heavy, not painful, something peaceful, something opening. "Ruth," Emma murmured, her voice fragile. "Thank you." Ruth patted her hand gently. "You'll find your balance, dear. Fire and gentleness can live in the same heart." Emma nodded slowly, not because she fully understood yet, but because she wanted to. And Ruth smiled like she could already see the woman Emma would someday become. The bus rolled on, humming steadily as the late afternoon light washed through the windows in soft golden streaks. Passengers seemed calmer now, some listening quietly, others pretending not to, but all undeniably touched by the atmosphere around the three of them. Even the driver glanced back in the mirror more than once, as if he didn't want to miss whatever wisdom was unfolding. Ruth adjusted herself in her seat, her movements slow but graceful. Emma watched her with a quiet awe she hadn't expected to feel toward anyone that day, least of all a stranger. "You know," Ruth said, eyes drifting toward the aisle as if searching her memories, "I spent a long time fighting too. Maybe not the same battles you fight today, but battles all the same." Emma leaned in a little, curiosity rising despite the lump still sitting in her throat. "What kind of battles?" Ruth smiled thoughtfully. "I fought for my place, for my voice, for respect, in a time when women were expected to sit quietly and nod along." She chuckled, a spark of mischief shining in her eyes. "I never did learn how to sit quietly." Michael chuckled softly, and Emma couldn't help but lift the corner of her mouth. "My husband," Ruth continued, "he loved that about me. He said I walked into every room like I was made of thunder." Her gaze drifted back to Emma. "And he never once tried to silence that thunder. He loved me because of it, not despite it." Emma's breath caught. "You make it sound so simple." Ruth shook her head gently. "No, dear. It wasn't simple at all. We argued. We disagreed. We both grew. That's what love is. That's what family is." Her eyes softened. Two stubborn hearts learning to be soft for each other. Emma felt something heavy shift inside her chest, replaced by something unfamiliar but warm. "But," Ruth added, voice lowering, "in my youth, I made a mistake you're close to making." Emma straightened, listening intently. "I believed I had to fight everything," Ruth said. "Every gesture, every phrase, every moment that looked old-fashioned. I thought if I didn't attack it, I was betraying myself." Emma lowered her gaze, hearing her own impulses echoed back at her. "But I didn't realize," Ruth said gently, "that sometimes compassion is not surrender, and sometimes love wears the shape of traditions we don't fully understand." Emma's throat tightened. "I think I misjudged my dad." Michael turned to her, eyes soft. "Emma." She looked away quickly, blinking fast. "I saw something that wasn't there. I turned a gesture into an attack." Ruth lifted a hand. "That's the fire in you. Fire is never wrong, dear, but it must be directed." Emma let her shoulders fall, exhaling shakily. "I've been directing it at the wrong people, haven't I?" Ruth's smile was tender. "Not wrong people, just the ones closest to you. The ones who love you enough to stand there and take it." Michael looked down, shame and sadness flickering over his features, but also a warmth, because he knew she was hurting too. Emma felt tears gathering again. "It's like, the more I try to protect myself, the more I hurt the ones who never meant to hurt me." Ruth nodded knowingly. "That is the cruel trick of fear. It makes warriors out of hearts that were meant to love." Emma pressed her hand against her chest, the words burying themselves deep. Ruth leaned forward, her voice low and gentle. "Your father didn't see you as weak when he made that gesture. He saw you as precious." Emma's breath caught. Michael stiffened slightly, surprised. Ruth continued softly. "Sometimes, dear, the people who love us want to make life easier in the only language they know." She smiled sadly. "His language is kindness. Yours is strength. They do not have to be opposites." Emma looked at her father then. Really looked. He wasn't towering over her with expectations. He wasn't criticizing her. He wasn't controlling her. He was just a man trying to show love in the only way he had been taught. Emma's voice trembled. "Dad, I didn't see that." Michael swallowed hard. "You weren't meant to understand everything at once. I just want you to feel safe." Emma felt something crack open inside her, like a door she had been pushing against for years without realizing it was unlocked the entire time. Ruth watched their faces, her smile softening. "See? You're both speaking the same language. You were just looking at different pages." The bus slowed as it approached another stop. A few passengers stood gathering their bags. The air shifted with movement, but the emotional stillness between the three of them remained untouched. Emma wiped under her eyes quickly. "Ruth, thank you, really." Ruth tapped her cane lightly. "Don't thank me yet, dear. Growth hurts a little before it heals." She winked. "But you're doing beautifully." Emma let out a shaky, unsteady breath, the kind that comes right before transformation. And for the first time since stepping into the bus line that day, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The bus continued its steady rhythm down the main road, sunlight flickering through the windows like pieces of a broken mosaic. Emma felt every bump, every turn, every shift in the engine, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere far quieter than the noisy interior of the bus. Ruth stayed seated across from them, her hands resting gently on her cane, her posture perfectly still despite the movement around her. There was something calming about her presence, something grounding. Emma realized she couldn't remember the last time an older woman had made her feel safe. The bus rounded a gentle curve, and the motion nudged Emma slightly toward her father. Michael's shoulder brushed hers, a small, unintentional contact, and instead of pulling away like she might have earlier, she let it stay. Solid, familiar, comforting. Ruth noticed the gesture, and a faint smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "You know," Ruth began softly, "sometimes our biggest misunderstandings come from forgetting that love grows at different speeds." Emma glanced up. "Different speeds?" "Oh yes," Ruth said, chuckling. "Some people show love quickly, loudly, fearlessly. Others," she nodded toward Michael, "others show it quietly, in simple actions. They don't shout it, they live it." Michael's cheeks flushed slightly, embarrassed but grateful. Emma swallowed. I don't think I ever realized how quietly he loves. Ruth's eyes sparkled. Quiet love is the strongest kind, dear. It doesn't need applause. It just is. Emma felt those words ripple through her. Ruth shifted slightly to face her more directly. When you're young, you think fighting for yourself means pushing against anything that feels old or familiar. But sometimes, her voice softened, you end up pushing away the people who laid the bridge you're standing on. Emma inhaled sharply, struck by the truth nestled in the words. Ruth continued, humming thoughtfully. Your father isn't trying to pull you backward. He's trying to keep you steady while you move forward. Emma looked at Michael then, studying him. The gentle lines on his face, the way his fingers tapped nervously against his knee. The awkward way he tried to lighten tension, even when he wasn't sure how. He wasn't perfect. He didn't always understand her world. But he tried. And he cared. And she had missed it, not by accident, but by instinctively defending herself from things that weren't threats. Emma's voice came out soft. I forget sometimes that he's a person, not just a dad, a person with feelings, with his own history, his own fears. Michael's eyes flickered with surprise. The good kind, the kind that hinted at healing. Ruth nodded. Relationships, especially family ones, are built on perspective. You can't see the whole picture when you're standing too close to your own corner. Emma let the words sink in. It felt like her defenses, her walls, were slowly dissolving. After a moment, Ruth looked directly into Emma's eyes. I want to ask you something, dear. Something honest. Emma steadied herself. Okay. Ruth tilted her head slightly. What were you fighting today? Truly? Was it your father? Or something inside you? The question hit Emma with the force of a sudden gust of wind. She felt a knot form in her chest, tight, uncomfortable, painfully revealing. She started, but the words tangled on her tongue. She tried again. I don't know. Ruth smiled gently. You do. You just haven't said it yet. Emma lowered her gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. I guess I fight because I'm afraid. Of what? Ruth asked tenderly. Emma's fingers curled against her thigh. She hadn't expected the truth to spill out, but it did, raw and unfiltered. I'm afraid that if I let my guard down, she exhaled shakily, I won't be taken seriously, that I'll lose myself, that people will hurt you? Ruth finished softly. Emma nodded quickly, blinking hard. Ruth leaned closer, her voice a quiet balm. Strength isn't only in your fire, dear. It's also in choosing where to place it, and knowing when someone is offering love, not harm. Emma bit her lip, feeling tears building again. Michael watched her, his expression softening with every word she spoke. Emma, he whispered gently, you don't have to fight me to be strong. I already know how strong you are. She dropped her gaze, overwhelmed. I don't want to hurt you. I know, he murmured. And you don't. Emma shook her head slowly. I did. Michael's voice wavered with emotion. Not beyond repair, never beyond repair. The three of them sat in a triangle of soft silence, not tense, not heavy, but deeply human. Ruth patted Emma's knee. See? Healing starts the moment honesty enters the room. Emma let out a shaky breath, part relief, part grief, part awakening. Ruth smiled, warm, proud, knowing. You're doing beautifully, dear, truly. And for the first time in a long while, Emma believed it. The bus rolled into a quieter district now. Wide streets, clusters of trees, sunlight filtering through the leaves like soft gold confetti. The ride had smoothed into a gentle hum, and the passengers who remained seemed to sense that something profound was unfolding in the front half of the bus. Emma wiped her cheeks discreetly, but the traces of emotion still clung to her features. Not embarrassment, something deeper, something truer. She felt strangely lighter, as if the weight she had been carrying for years, the urge to respond, to react, to defend, had loosened its grip. Ruth shifted, resting both hands on her cane, and for the first time, Emma noticed the slight trembling in the woman's fingers. Age was etched into every line of her hands, every delicate movement, yet her presence felt unshakable. "Do you know, dear?" Ruth began softly. "There's a particular kind of strength that only reveals itself when we're willing to listen." Emma nodded slowly, her voice quiet. "I think I've been so focused on being strong that I forgot strength isn't always loud." Ruth smiled. "Exactly. Sometimes it whispers." Michael glanced at his daughter, admiration flickering across his face. Not because she was agreeing with someone, but because he could see her unfolding, layer by layer, gently, courageously. Ruth continued, "I used to think that if I wasn't fighting, I wasn't protecting myself. But peace, dear." She tapped her heart. "Peace doesn't come from winning battles. It comes from choosing the right ones." Emma exhaled deeply, absorbing the words like sunlight. "I think I've been choosing every battle." "Of course you have," Ruth said gently. "That's what happens when the world teaches you that silence means surrender. But silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's wisdom. Sometimes it's love." Emma's eyes softened. "And my dad? He wasn't asking me to be silent. He was just showing love in his language," Ruth finished. Emma looked at Michael, and this time she saw him, truly saw him, not as a symbol, not as an obstacle, but as a man who had spent years learning how to protect her, support her, love her, even when he didn't understand everything she believed. "Dad," she whispered, the word trembling with sincerity. "I'm sorry. Not just for earlier, but for all the times I treated you like the enemy when you were never trying to be." Michael blinked rapidly, turning his face slightly as emotion welled behind his eyes. "Emma, sweetheart, you don't need to apologize. I should have asked how you felt about things instead of assuming what was right." Emma shook her head. "You did nothing wrong. I was ready to fight before I even heard you." Michael placed a careful hand over hers. "You've always been fiery, and I love that about you. I just never want to be the target of that fire by mistake." Emma squeezed his hand gently, a gesture so simple, yet so monumental for her. "I don't want that either." Ruth watched them, her expression warm and full of quiet victory. "You see," she said softly, "bridges aren't built by matching bricks. They're built by meeting in the middle." Emma let out a breath that felt like release. "Thank you, Ruth, for everything." Ruth gave a playful shrug. "Oh, don't thank me yet, dear. I'm not done meddling." Emma let out a small laugh, her first genuine one that day, and even Michael chuckled beside her. Ruth leaned in slightly, her voice lowering. "May I tell you a secret?" Emma nodded, entranced. "Yes." Ruth's eyes glowed with memory. "The last time my husband opened a door for me, I nearly scolded him. I was tired, frustrated. I don't even remember why. But I do remember snapping at him." She paused, breathing slowly. 3 days later, he was gone. Emma's breath hitched. Michael inhaled sharply. Ruth continued, her voice delicate but unwavering. "Grief is a cruel teacher, dear. It shows you the value of kindness by taking it away." A tear escaped down Emma's cheek before she could stop it. Ruth reached out, brushing it away gently with the back of her finger. "Cherish gentleness when it's given to you. The world will give you plenty of things worth fighting. Don't fight the ones who love you." Emma nodded, unable to speak. Ruth smiled warmly. "Your father loves you with a quiet heart. Don't punish him for speaking softly." The bus slowed, beginning its descent toward another stop. A few passengers glanced over, moved by the moment even if they pretended not to be listening. Emma exhaled softly, her voice trembling but certain. "I won't." Michael's grip on her hand tightened with gratitude, the kind of gratitude that didn't need words. Ruth eased back in her seat, satisfied. "Good. Then this battle." She tapped Emma's heart gently. "You've already won." And for the first time that day, Emma felt like she was winning something far more important than an argument. She was winning her life back. The bus continued its slow journey through the quieter streets, the city unfolding softly outside the windows. Emma felt calmer than she had in weeks, maybe months. It was strange how a stranger's words could unravel years of tension that she didn't even realize she had been carrying in her chest. Ruth rested quietly now, but her eyes stayed alert, warm, watchful, like someone who had seen storms before and knew exactly when the skies were starting to clear. Emma shifted slightly in her seat, glancing at her father. Michael stared out the window with a gentle, contemplative expression. The lines around his eyes seemed softer somehow, lighter, like a weight had been lifted from him too. "Dad?" she said. He turned, giving her his full attention. No tension, no worry, just patience. "I never asked," Emma began slowly, "what you meant earlier, when you said older people should go first. I assumed you meant one thing, but that wasn't fair." Michael hesitated for a moment, then gave a small, thoughtful nod. "It wasn't about rules or expectations, Emma. It's just how I was raised, to look out for people who might need a little extra patience." He paused. "And maybe it's my way of doing for others what I hope someone will do for me when I'm older." Emma's breath hitched softly. Michael exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I guess I didn't want to say that out loud. Makes me feel like I'm aging faster than I realize." Ruth chuckled softly from across the aisle. "We're all aging, dear. Some of us are just doing it louder than others." Emma smiled at that. A real small smile. She shifted to face her father more directly. "I never thought about it that way. I was so focused on the message I thought you were sending that I didn't stop to consider the message you meant." Michael nodded slowly. "And I should have understood that your perspective isn't the same as mine. I forget that sometimes." Emma felt a sudden, overwhelming tenderness for him. Not pity, not guilt, but something purer. Recognition, appreciation. "Dad," she whispered, "you don't have to change who you are for me." Michael shook his head gently. "And you don't have to change who you are for me either. We just have to understand each other." Ruth smiled approvingly. "There it is, the middle ground." Emma let her shoulders relax, her breath coming easier. "I don't want to use my voice to hurt people I love. I want to use it wisely, not just loudly." Ruth's eyes softened. "And that, dear, is the first sign of true strength." Emma looked down at her hands, tracing the ink of the small tattoo on her wrist. A flame. She had chosen it because it represented resistance, fight, fire. But now it looked different somehow. Softer, not less powerful, just more meaningful. Ruth leaned forward slightly, gripping her cane. "Let me tell you something I learned far too late." Emma listened closely. "When we stop trying to win every argument, we start winning something far more important." She paused. "People." Emma felt the impact of those words settle deep inside her chest. She was good at debates, good at dismantling flawed logic, good at pointing out injustice, but people, the people she cared about, she hadn't always known how to hold them gently. "I think I forget that sometimes," Emma admitted. "I forget that people aren't ideas I have to dismantle." Ruth's voice turned soft. "No, dear. People are stories you have to listen to." Emma swallowed hard, her eyes warming again. Michael leaned closer, placing a hand on her back, the kind of soft, supportive touch he hadn't dared to offer since the argument began. "You're learning, Emma," he said, "and that means everything to me." Emma looked up at him, her voice trembling. "I want to be better for us, not just for what I believe." Michael's eyes glistened. "You already are." The bus slowed again, approaching another stop. A few passengers stood to exit, but they moved quietly, almost reverently, as if afraid to disturb the fragile moment unfolding between father, daughter, and the woman who had unknowingly healed a wound between them. Ruth placed a gentle hand on Emma's knee. "You'll have many more battles in life, dear, but choose the ones worth your fire, the ones that build, not break." Emma nodded, feeling the truth of that resonate deeply. "And remember," Ruth added, "love doesn't limit your strength, it refines it." Those words struck something inside Emma that she hadn't realized was still unspoken, a mixture of gratitude, grief, hope, and realization that had been bubbling beneath the surface all day. "Ruth," Emma whispered, voice breaking, "I don't know how to thank you." Ruth smiled softly. "You just did." Emma inhaled shakily, her heart full in a way that felt both heavy and expansive. Michael reached out and took her hand gently, threading their fingers together. She squeezed back, something she hadn't done since she was a teenager. Ruth's smile brightened. "Good. Hold on to that. Because someday, dear, someday it might be you offering wisdom to a young woman who reminds you of yourself." Emma let out a shaky laugh. "I hope I'm half as wise as you." "Oh, you will be," Ruth said with certainty. "You already have the fire. Now you have the heart." The bus rumbled on, carrying them forward, not just through the city, but into a new understanding they hadn't realized they needed. The bus glided toward its final few stops, the late afternoon sun melting into a soft amber glow across the city. The ride had quieted into a peaceful hum, the kind of silence that doesn't demand anything, that simply allows people to breathe. Emma sat between her father and Ruth, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Balance. Not because she agreed with everything said, not because she'd abandoned her principles, but because she had finally learned that strength didn't always require sharp edges. The bus slowed again, and Ruth shifted slightly, preparing to stand. Her hands trembled as she braced herself against the seat. Emma moved instinctively. "Here," she said softly, reaching out. Ruth gave her a warm smile. "Look at that. Already learning." Emma felt her cheeks warm, but in a proud way. A quiet pride, not the kind fueled by adrenaline or debate. Michael also stood a little, steadying Ruth's arm with care. The three of them formed a small circle of support in the aisle. Unexpected, unlikely, but perfect. Ruth looked between them, her eyes shining with something tender and bittersweet. "I think this is my stop." Emma's heart dipped. She didn't want their time to end yet. Not when Ruth felt like a living reminder of the woman she wanted to become someday, fierce and kind in equal measure. Michael nodded respectfully. "It was an honor meeting you." Ruth squeezed his hand gently. "Keep loving her softly. It matters." Michael swallowed hard. "I will." Then Ruth turned to Emma. "And you? Keep loving boldly. But choose your battles with care, dear. Not every hill is meant to be conquered. Some are meant to be understood." Emma nodded, her eyes warming again. "I will. Because of you." Ruth touched her cheek, a gesture so gentle it felt like a blessing. "Good girl." The bus hissed to a stop. Ruth lifted her cane and stepped carefully toward the door. Before she exited, she looked back one last time, her silhouette framed by sunlight spilling through the open doorway. "Life is kinder than it seems, dear," she said softly, "but only when you let it be." And with that, she descended the steps and disappeared into the golden light of the sidewalk. Emma remained standing for a moment, watching her until she became just another figure moving through the world. Though to Emma, she now felt like one of its quiet guardians. The bus doors closed with a soft gasp of air, and the vehicle pulled away once more. Emma sat slowly, her mind replaying Ruth's words, her heart processing everything she had felt, resisted, fought, and finally surrendered to. Michael looked at her, his expression gentle but searching. You okay? She nodded, though her throat tightened. Better than okay? He gave a small smile. She had a way with words. Emma let out a soft laugh. She had a way with everything. A comfortable silence settled between them, the kind she thought they might never share again. Emma glanced at his hand resting on his knee, and without hesitation, reached over and took it gently. Michael blinked, surprised. Pleasantly so. Emma's voice came out quiet but full. Thank you for being patient with me. He squeezed her hand. Always. Emma leaned her head lightly against his shoulder, something she hadn't done since she was a child, waiting for the bus to elementary school. But now it felt natural. Needed. Healing. Michael closed his eyes briefly, letting the moment settle into a place he'd long tried to reach with her. Outside the window, the city passed by, people walking, cars buzzing, the world moving at its usual pace. But inside the bus, time felt slower, softer. Emma whispered, almost to herself, I think I've been afraid of losing myself. Michael rested his cheek on her hair. You never could. You're too strong. Emma exhaled shakily. And I think I've been afraid of being hurt. I know, he murmured, but I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to love you. Even when you're on fire. A soft laugh escaped her, one mixed with tears she didn't bother hiding anymore. When I fought you earlier, she said, it wasn't because I wanted to win. It was because I didn't know how to listen. And now you do, Michael replied gently. Emma nodded. I'm learning. They sat like that as the bus neared their stop, their hands still intertwined. The weight between them transformed into something steady and warm. As the bus pulled up and the doors opened, Emma stood and took one final, thoughtful look at the seat where Ruth had been. A quiet reminder, a gentle teacher, a stranger who stepped into their lives at exactly the right moment. Emma whispered, Thank you, even though Ruth was no longer there to hear it. Michael placed a hand on her back as they stepped off the bus together. Not guiding, not leading, just walking beside her. Equal. Understood. Healing. And for the first time in a long time, Emma believed something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. That not every gesture carried a threat, and not every tradition needed to be torn down. Some of them, the ones spoken softly, offered gently, rooted in love, were bridges waiting to be crossed. Together,